Yo, what's up? What's up? Microphone check 1 2 1 2. It's your boy DJ Mad Scientist. And yes, we are here for the hot take special. What? That's right. That's right. Before we get started, I need y'all to do something. I'm getting way better at this. So I'm asking y'all quickly. I need something from you right away. If you can, please hit that like button. Yes, hit the like button. Because if you hit it quick, it lets the algorithm know people are listening, they are interested, and in that way, they send it out to more people. I'm getting way better at this, right? Getting way better at this whole thing. When I first started doing these hot takes, I was like really raw, rough around the edges. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just gonna be buck wilding. I didn't care. But as time goes on, I'm like getting a little better at it, you know. Is that? Anyway, anywho, I don't have a production staff. I don't have makeup yet. So anyway, it's hot takes day. And I got a lot of takes that's hot and a lot of hots that's takes. All right, you know what? Let me just get into it because that was really a crazy moment we just had, and I want to like speed past it. But like I said, before we do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you can, please. That way, like I said, the algorithm can pick it up and my numbers will go up. My numbers start blowing up. They're actually getting a lot better over time, like consistently the same numbers all the time. I mean, it's not great numbers, but it's consistent though. And that's what I like the best. It lets me know like people are actually out there listening, waiting for it, like wanting it. And I'm cool for it. I'm here for it. One thing I do want to, before I start getting into the topics, one thing I did want to tell you, I'm going to start broadening my topics. Broadening. When I first started this, I wanted to keep it kind of like music only. And I'm increasingly finding that hard to do. So I was talking to my people and I said, you know what? Maybe I just need to go ahead and just let the topics come as they come, instead of trying to, you know, just stay in this rigid path. Maybe what I should do is just allow it to come and however they come, read it and then react, not always give commentary, but sometimes or editorialize, but sometimes just read and react. And then there's going to be sometimes I want to get back into my essays, my little video essays. I'm not sure, you guys have to comment and let me know. Do you like the essay style or do you like the read and react? Read and react is what I'm going to do today. So if you're like wondering, what is read and react? I want to read the story and then react, right? Whereas essays is more like I tell you a story that kind of brings everything together and you guys just kind of like are entertained by the story. I think a lot of people like stories. I kind of get it from the Rachel Maddow show. I really like that show. So she always does like an essay style. So like I said, you let me know what style you like. Do you like the essay style or do you like the read and react? Okay. And let me know how you guys feel about it. Comment and I'll make the adjustments. Okay. All right. Nikki Minaj, immigration status. Who knew? Who knew? All right. Hold up. Hold up. What did I do? I sat up here and moved away from the story. All right, let me scroll. Sorry about that, y'all. Oh, here we are. All right. Nicki Minaj. Sure, I came here illegally. Now I'm all in for Trump. Nicki Minaj has apparently done a complete 180-degree flip on her immigration stance. According to a recently dug up Facebook post from President Donald Trump's first term in office, as you know, Nikki has been very vocal in her support of the Trump administration lately. She praised Donald Trump despite his anti-immigration agenda and denigrated Don Lemon for covering an ICE post at the at a ICE protest at a Minnesota church. I saw it. I looked at that protest. Don Lemon's a G. Okay. But in 2018, she wrote, I came to this country as an illegal immigrant at 5 years old. I cannot imagine the horror of being in a strange place and having my parents stripped away from me at the age of 5. This is so scary to me. Please stop this. Can you try to imagine the horror? Like she has a little nasally, the horror of panicking these kids feel right now. The post is accompanied by a photo of kids on a mat, some covered with space blankets in a large chain link fence in cage. Oh, wow, have times changed. That post is far cry from her feelings today when she responded positively to a clip of Katie Miller, White House Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller's wife, as Katie promoted the SAVE Act, a bill meant to prevent, and I hate saying this word, but here it is, illegal aliens, as though we got like people from Mars coming over here, from voting and engaging in our democracy. Trust me, I know a lot of people who migrated to this country, and the last thing they're worried about is trying to vote. It's just not on their agenda. The craziest part is, as recently as 2024, she stated that she is not a US citizen. Crazy, huh? How we get all these immigrants into our politics. In a TikTok live, Nikki said, I was born on a beautiful island called Trinidad and Tobago, but I've been in the States for many years. You would think that the millions of dollars that I've paid in taxes to this country, that I would have been given an honorary citizenship many, many, many thousands of years ago. You know, let me stop there for a minute. For those of you who are like, oh, these illegal immigrants are here taking up resources, taking up this, taking that, taking our. What a lot of people don't understand and they don't realize is that whether you are a citizen or not, you got to pay taxes. And if people are working, they're paying those taxes. And those taxes are not voluntary, they're mandatory. Most people get their taxes taken out first and then they get their check. So, yeah, I believe Nikki has paid millions of dollars in taxes. And because she's not a citizen, she doesn't get any of the benefits. So sad for Nikki, but just as sad for the millions of people who work here as undocumented people or who are non-citizens and yet still pay taxes and they don't get any benefits. In fact, the taxes you pay or the taxes they pay helps fund ICE. Just want to throw that out there. All right, but I digress. Seems nuts, but then again, Don has insinuated that perhaps Nikki's newfound MAGA obsession is just a front. You think in an effort to not get deported, not sent back home to the beautiful island, or possibly to secure some sort of pardon for her alleged sex offender husband, Kenneth Petty, or her brother, Jelani Mirage, who is currently incarcerated in New York for a predatory sexual assault conviction. Now, if he's in New York, is he incarcerated by the state of New York? Because if he's incarcerated by the state of New York, then there's nothing Trump can do. But either way, Trump is not pardoning nobody with sexual offender after their name. Okay, just not going to do it. It wouldn't be a good look. I'm pretty sure there's nobody that's thinking, yeah, that would be a good idea. While on 2012's Mercy, she rapped, she was a Republican voting for Mitt Romney. So she's been on that trip boat for a while, huh? Since 2012. That was 2012, wasn't it? It looks like she was actually a non-citizen, not allowed to vote for anyone in any way. TMZ has tried to reach out to Nikki. So far, no word back. Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Nikki situation, and I think, pretty much we can all accept the fact that it is entertaining. It is entertaining. Yes, it is. But at the end of the day, that's all it's going to be is entertaining. I mean, what do you think she could do? She's not going to be able to really influence voters to any way, to sway anyway, primarily because, well, large part of her base is homosexual and kind of like conservative homosexual. They don't combine well because the conservatives are trying to take away the rights of homosexuals. And so if most of your fan base doesn't fit with the agenda of the Donald Trump regime, I don't see it working. I don't see it working. All right. Speaking of Donald, not Don Lemon. Don Lemon. Now I'll tell you, I did watch the stream. I watched it. It was. I'm just going to say this. I'm going to tell you this. Don Lemon is the GOAT. He is primarily because he's willing to go places that most people will be like, nah, I'm good. I think I'm gonna just take the safe route. He's willing to he's a G out in these streets. Like he's really like, I'm about that life, that journalist life. And you can't, it's hard to hate on it. But anyway, the DOJ civil rights chief blasts Don Lemon for covering the anti-ICE protest inside church, files charges against protesters. Harmit Dillon, which I'm pretty like just her being head of the civil rights division at the DOJ, kind of like is crazy. But I digress again. Nobody should think in the United States that is going to be able to get away with this after anti-ICE protesters halted Sunday service at a St. Paul church. I want to let the irony of that kind of waft over you, kind of just sink in. I mean, you're head of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Part of the rights that people have is to protest. Right? Okay. All right, let's get into the story. The Justice Department will pursue charges related to a protest in a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Assistant Attorney General Harmit Dillon said Monday, specifically calling out ex-CNN journalist, First Amendment right. Like all of this case, it would be like First Amendment rights. Like you have a right to protest. The press has a right to cover the news. And yes, the biggest irony is that you have Christians complaining about people protesting in the church when the actual Jesus protested in a church. Anyway, in an interview with conservative influencer Benny Johnson, Dillon, the assistant attorney general for civil rights, said journalism is not a shield for criminal conspiracy. Is she a lawyer? Okay. Don Lemon himself has come out and said he knew exactly what was going to happen inside the facility. Okay. Dillon said on the Benny show, he went into the facility and then he began, quote unquote, committing journalism. This is not a good argument to convict him of a crime. I mean, unless you're the defense attorney. As if that's sort of a shield from being a part of an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. Okay, this lady's like nuts. Dillon did not confirm whether the Justice Department would pursue charges against Lemon in particular. NBC News has asked the Justice Department and the place of worship, City's Church, for comment. Reach for a response to Dillon's remarks. Lemon said in an email that it's notable that I've been cast as the face of a protest I was covering as a journalist, especially since I wasn't the only reporter there. That framing is telling, he said. What's even more telling is the barrage of violent threats, along with homophobic and racial slurs directed at me online by MAGA supporters and amplified by parts of the right wing press. Mm. Well, but they can do that though. Freedom of speech. Mm. That First Amendment, man, it is so tricky. Lemon said he stood by his reporting. If this much time and energy is going to be spent manufacturing outrage, it would be far better used investigating the tragic death of Renee Cole Good, the very issue that brought people into the streets in the first place. He wrote, referring to the woman who was shot and killed by an immigration and customs enforcement officer this month. Now, that reminded me, there was another story I wanted to get into, but I didn't prep it, right? But ICE agents, Minnesota police officers. I want to look up this story, which is kind of related. So I don't have a banner for it, but I remembered it right now. And I think this is something that I need to comment on. Let me look at my time, okay? Because time is precious and important. Okay, ICE agents drew guns on an off-duty officer in Minnesota, chief says. Federal agents pulled over an off-duty officer in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, stopped her from recording the interaction, and drew their guns on local police, chief said. Okay, immigration agents had stopped an off-duty officer in Minnesota solely because of the color of their skin. A group of local police chiefs allege as concerns grows over the handling of immigration enforcement in the state. American citizens are being stopped in the streets with no cause and are being forced to produce paperwork to determine if they are here legally. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm an American citizen. I don't have paperwork. I have a driver's license. I even have a California ID, but I don't have paperwork. If somebody says, yeah, I got paperwork, I'm an American citizen, they're not an American citizen because you don't need paperwork. Because when you're born, you don't get paperwork. Now, if they say, okay, show me your birth certificate, who drives around with the birth certificate? Whew. He added that police officers fell victims to this while off duty and that the stops appear to target people of color. Yeah, I saw the actual press conference, and he said very bluntly, this one police officer that he described was not the only one, but he did say that there seems to be a pattern with police officers in Minnesota who are people of color are getting pulled out. He says in one encounter, a Brooklyn police officer was boxed in by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents who demanded her paperwork. Agents had their guns drawn, he said, adding that one agent knocked the police officer's phone out of her hand when she tried to record the interaction. I wish I could tell you this was an isolated incident, Bruley said, flanked by other local chiefs of police. It is happening to our officer. It pains me to think how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day. It has to stop. In a statement to USA Today, the Department of Homeland Security said DHS is able to find no record of ICE or Border Patrol stopping and questioning a police officer. Oh, so now all these chiefs are lying. They're lying. They got on TV and lied. Without a name, whoa. Without a name? They have no name on their, okay. Without a name, we cannot verify these claims. We will continue to look into these claims. The remarks come amid heightened scrutiny of the tactics being employed by federal immigration agents after the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good on January 7th. I find it, and I'm just freestyling an essay. Here's the part that we talked about before in the past. We talked about um, the African Americans who participated in as uh, owners of plantations and owners of people. And once this, before the Civil War, they were doing really, really great. They own plantation, they own sugar farms, they own cotton, and they own people. Even though they were also African American. Well, they weren't Americans at that time; they were Africans here in America. Once the Civil War started and ended, and the states started to change their laws, now all of a sudden they fell victim to those laws because those laws were based on, at that time, race. So when you have people at this point in time who are arbitrarily, for no provocation, no reason, deciding to stop people, well, yeah, of course, if you're a police officer in Minnesota, you're off duty, you're going to get caught up into it. It's only normal. And I like the fact that this chief noted that it's only happening to his officers of color. The chief is white. Not that I believe in that, because I don't. But the point is, the chief is white, and he's concerned about his officers of color getting racially profiled. My question to him would have been, hey, moving forward, do you think that this is a practice that maybe your police department should not get involved in as well? That maybe you guys should stop racially profiling, because racial profiling pretty much can affect anyone, including your officers. But I digress. So anyway, back to the Don Lemon story. We'll have to see what's going on with that. We'll have to see. The interesting thing is they're going to charge him with they're going to charge Don Lemon with a federal law that was written for the KKK. So ironic, isn't it? That's why I have to be honest, I had to diversify my hot take topics, because pretty much for the most part, I think this is how it's going to be for the next 3 years. It's just going to be a free for all. And for content providers like myself, we're going to have a lot to we're going to have a lot to deal with and say. But speaking of more black news, the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, up there sounding black. Literally. Canada's Prime Minister just declared the end of the world as we know it. What? Now, I'm going to just tell you, I'm reading from Vox, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but let me just tell you, they're breaking down this Canadian Prime Minister's speech like it was Kendrick Lamar lyrics. I mean, they're breaking it down, okay? But I'm just going to give you a little bit. Since World War II, Mark Carney told the crowd in Davos, Switzerland, global politics have largely adhered to a system of norms that prioritize shared prosperity and cooperation. But as President Donald Trump lays waste to those norms, longtime U.S. allies, Canada included, are taking steps to counter America's influence even after Trump's current term. It's hard to overstate just how new and strange that is. America's nearest neighbor and closest ally, calling for the development of a new world order that sidelines the U.S. When historians look back at this era, this speech by Mark Carney will be seen as an inflection point, wrote Lulu Garcia Navarro, a New York Times journalist. The address is worth reading and watching in full, which is something I have said of many, maybe 3 speeches in my career. But because that would be a lot to put in your inbox, I've instead asked 4 of my colleagues from Vox's political and politics team to explain the big highlights here. In today's edition, they answer the question, what does Canada and the rest of the world want from the New World Order? Whew. Speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Canada Prime Minister declared that the system of international rules and norms that have been in place since World War II aren't working anymore, and that the middle powers like Canada should stop pretending that they are. Tensions between the US and its European and Canadian allies have been ratcheting up for months. What's special about this? What's the difference? One thing that Trump's second term has changed, and the Carney's speech reflects, is that the West tension with America is no longer just about Trump's personal behavior. You could look at this current Greenland standoff, for example, as a personal obsession of Trump's that has no real connection to any faction of either party. That polls about are terribly in the US as it is in Europe. And that will go away as soon as he goes away or faces enough pressure from US voters or the stock market. But that's not how it's been treated by Carney. Canada now has to consider the possibility that the US, whether in the next election or 20 years or 40 years, is capable of empowering another Trump-like figure who tears up existing arguments and fundamentally does not believe in the post-World War II project of shared security and democratic values. Carney starts off by critiquing the rules-based international order, which is an interesting choice. He says, in particular, that we knew the story of the international rules-based order was particularly false, that the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient. Is he saying that the New World Order was a lie or that American dominance was universally bad? Now, I told you, I'm not going to read this whole thing. You should listen to the speech. It's very sobering. It feels like to me, and I've heard this from other commentators that are Black. It feels like to me that there's a segment of the white population that's coming to an acceptance. It's kind of like a death of a fantasy that they've had since the 1950s, World War II. And they've been holding on to this fantasy. And in spite of the fact that we had a whole civil rights, Black power movement, and then we've had a Black awakening through the Black Lives Matter, where pretty much try to tell people, hey, listen, this fantasy you're living, wake up. In fact, you have a whole movement of anti-woke, but it's almost like the anti-woke sentiment didn't work. And now, I need some water. And now that this anti-woke thing hasn't worked, there's a segment of the white population in this country and in other countries that are waking up to a certain reality that fantasy that they thought that they were living in, it just wasn't true. And when you have a situation where Donald Trump can come in and just go roughshod over all your norms, it's almost like he gets on there and says, F your couch. F your couch. That's Donald Trump to the whole world. F your couch. F your couch. Okay? At some point in time, the whole world is like waking up to the fact that Donald Trump don't care. I ain't gonna lie. Some of us are here to see it. I knew it would happen. I'm a historian, so I knew it would happen. Rome did fall. The British Empire did fall. We had many empires. The Mayan Empire fell. All these empires fell. The ancient Kemetic empire fell. Africa's had empires that fell. They rise and they fall. China has all kind of dynasties. They rise and they fall. So if you thought that America would not fall, I just didn't think I'd see it, to be honest. I thought I'd be dead. All right, back to some more music news. J. Cole, the debate over J. Cole. Recently, Fat Joe and Jada, they were discussing J. Cole's role in hip hop. Is he part of the big three? And I'm not going to go back over the history of J. Cole. I'm not going to go back over the history of the battle. I'm not going to go into all of that. We've stepped on that content forever, okay? But I just kind of wanted to, in hip hop right now, we don't have a lot of things to talk about. I mean, we can talk about Nikki, but then that leads us to politics. So I guess we just have to discuss whether the big three is a thing or not. And so I'm going to put my 2 cents into it. Listen, is J. Cole a part of the big three? I feel like he is. I feel like, when we talk about Drake, Kendrick, and J. Cole, and when we're maybe 20 years from now, and these guys are well into their senior citizen years, and maybe Drake is walking around with a cane and a couple of grandkids. Definitely Kendrick's going to have multiple grandkids, J. Cole too. And they'll be laughing and joking within their camps about this time. I think from my opinion, because I've listened to all three of these men their entire career, my favorite, as you guys know, is Kendrick. I just feel like J. Cole cannot be denied his status as one of the best of this era. He can't. Now, he made a decision to get out of a battle, and if you guys remember, we all said we had to apologize to J. Cole because we didn't know the level of belt to butt that Kendrick was going to put on Drake. And we didn't realize how fun it was to watch it. And I think that if J. Cole had remained in the battle, we would not have the battle that we had. It was chef's kiss perfect. Would I rather have a lesser battle just to see J. Cole fumbling in there? No, get out. He got out at the right time, and he got out for the right reason. And we said, hey, J. Cole, we forgive you. So now to forgive the man for doing what we think is great, and then the battle turning out to be the way that it was, leave that man alone. Okay? I get it. Nobody wants to talk about politics. Music is kind of boring right now. I don't mean boring. Music itself, hip-hop music is great. Okay? Got some really great music out. MC Johnny T's Cole project is out. Go check it out. That's Coal, just like Cole. MC Johnny T. Go check it out. It's great. I love the producer because it's me. But the point is this, okay? Music doesn't have a lot of salacious topics that we want to talk about. That's the issue. There's no salaciousness. There's no there's no morsels that you and your mouth gets all wet and kind of like at the beginning of this video for me, the beginning of this live, right? Okay. It just means that there's not a lot of black rappers going to jail or in trial. There's not a lot of, drive-by shootings. Not that everything is negative in hip hop. Not saying that. Just saying, you know, TMZ and all the other places only like to report on the negative. So TMZ, they have nothing to talk about. Everybody's with their baby mama, their baby daddy. Even Cardi B is happy with Stefan Diggs. Yeah, I think it's Diggs. Yeah. Nobody saw that coming. Peace between them. And they're like a really great couple. Nobody saw that coming. But they are. So I just think this whole little J. Cole not being a part of the big three is just because probably Fat Joe doesn't want to tell us that he supports Trump. And Jada probably supports Trump too. I don't know. Allegedly. Anyway, all right, y'all. I'm done. Um, that's the hot takes for this week. I will see y'all on Monday. I'll be talking about music marketing again. I'm going into my actual plan of action to blow myself up. Not like, you know, to become famous. And also, I want to give you some behind the scenes because I don't use AI to create music, but I do use AI to make my plans of actions. Okay, so that's what we'll be talking about. Now, I'll see y'all next week, 6 o'clock, with more hot takes. I think next week I'm gonna do the essay thing, you know, just because I want to give you guys a little bit of variety until I find out exactly what you guys want, and then stick with it. All right, y'all. This your boy DJ Mad Scientist. Peace.